A waitress helps a disabled boy eat his meal, thinking it's just another moment of compassion. But when his billionaire father sees what happens, he takes action in a way no one could have ever expected. Was it just gratitude? Or is there something far deeper at play here? You won't believe what the rich man does next. This story is about to take a shocking turn. Keep watching to find out how one small act turns into something unthinkable. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe for more powerful stories. Lucy was just another waitress at a small, cozy cafe. She worked hard every day, balancing plates, drinks, and smiles. It wasn't glamorous, but she loved helping people, especially the regulars who came in every day. Life wasn't easy, but she always did her best to keep a positive attitude, even if it meant putting her own dreams on hold. One afternoon, a father and his son came in, catching Lucy's attention. The boy, Jake, looked around 12 years old, but something about him was different. He had cerebral palsy and struggled to feed himself, but his eyes sparkled with curiosity and intelligence. His father, Richard, was the complete opposite: cold, distant, and obviously wealthy. He barely acknowledged Lucy when she approached the table, his focus on the boy who needed more than just a meal. Lucy couldn't help but feel sympathy for Jake, who was trying so hard to eat on his own. Without thinking, she offered to help him. She moved gently, helping Jake eat his meal, never expecting that one simple act of kindness would lead to something unimaginable. And then, Richard's eyes locked onto her, his expression unreadable. Little did Lucy know, this moment would change everything. When Lucy helped Jake eat his meal that afternoon, she didn't expect anything to come of it. She had done this kind of thing before, helping those who needed a little extra assistance. Jake, a sweet boy with cerebral palsy, was struggling to eat on his own, and his father, Richard, was sitting across from them, barely paying attention. But as Lucy offered to help, something changed in the air. The moment her hands gently touched the utensils, Jake's eyes lit up. He was relieved, and Lucy could see it. It wasn't just the food, it was the simple, human connection. Richard, on the other hand, didn't seem pleased. His face, usually blank and stern, remained emotionless, though his eyes followed every movement she made. He didn't speak, didn't acknowledge Lucy's kindness. But there was something about his stare that made her uneasy. It wasn't just indifference. It was like he was sizing her up, weighing something in his mind. And though she felt his gaze, she continued helping Jake, focusing on the boy who needed her. The meal went on, and as Lucy finished, she gave Jake a warm smile, trying not to make it awkward. He smiled back, his eyes filled with gratitude. Lucy felt a sense of satisfaction. She had done a good deed, and that was all that mattered. But as she turned to walk away, Richard's voice stopped her. "I need to speak with you," he said, his tone cool but commanding. Lucy froze, a bit startled. She hadn't expected any kind of conversation, especially from him. She turned around slowly and walked back to the table, wondering what this would be about. Richard looked up at her, his eyes piercing, almost like he could see right through her. "You helped my son," he began, his voice low. "And I think that deserves something more than a thank you. But I have to say, I wasn't expecting someone like you to care for him." His words felt heavy, like an accusation disguised as gratitude. Lucy's heart skipped a beat. She didn't quite understand what he meant. "I was just helping," she said softly, hoping to brush it off. Richard's gaze didn't waver. "You're just a waitress, right?" but you showed him more kindness than most people who've been around him for years. That's rare." He paused, studying her carefully. "I don't forget those who make an impact on my family." Lucy felt an uneasy knot in her stomach. She'd always been kind to people, but she wasn't sure if she was being praised or scrutinized. The comment about her being just a waitress didn't sit right with her. Why did he feel the need to mention that? "I didn't do it for anything," she replied, trying to keep the conversation neutral. "I just did what anyone would do." Richard leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping on the table, as if deep in thought. The silence between them stretched on for a moment. Finally, he spoke again. "You're wrong about that. Not everyone would help, and I'm willing to reward you for your kindness. I think you'll find my offer quite generous." His voice was smooth, like he was making a business deal. Lucy blinked, unsure how to react. Was he offering her money, or was there something else? She had never expected her simple act of kindness to lead to this. "I don't need a reward," she said quickly. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." Richard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I think you'll change your mind when you see what I'm offering. I'm a man of wealth, and I don't offer things lightly. This could be life-changing for you." He paused for effect. "I want you to think about it." The offer hung in the air, and Lucy's mind raced. What did he mean by life-changing? Was he trying to buy her loyalty? Or was there something deeper at play here? Lucy had seen people like Richard before, wealthy, powerful, and used to getting what they wanted. But this didn't feel like a simple offer. It felt like manipulation. She shook her head slowly, trying to keep her composure. "I don't need anything from you," she replied firmly. "Helping Jake was enough for me." Richard's expression darkened for a brief moment, and Lucy could feel the tension building. There was more to this than she realized, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into something far bigger than she expected. As she left the table, her mind was spinning. What had Richard really wanted? And why did she feel like his generosity came with strings attached? This wasn't just about a meal. It was about power, control, and something Lucy hadn't yet figured out. After Richard's offer, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had helped Jake out of kindness, not because she expected anything in return. And now, here was this wealthy, cold man offering her something she didn't want. What did he mean by life-changing? And why did it feel like he was trying to buy her? The days that followed felt strangely tense. She tried to put it behind her, to focus on her work and move on with her life. But Richard's words haunted her. He didn't seem like the type to make idle promises. She had seen men like him before, people who used their wealth and status to get what they wanted. Was this about Jake, or was it really about something deeper? Was Richard testing her, or did he genuinely want to help? Lucy decided she couldn't ignore it anymore. She had to know the truth. She was determined to find out what Richard's intentions really were. One afternoon, she saw Richard and Jake again at the cafe. This time, she wasn't going to let him control the conversation. She walked over to their table, and before Richard could speak, she cut him off. "I can't accept your offer," she said, her voice steady, but the nerves in her chest were undeniable. "I'm not interested in what you're offering. What you said was kind, but it doesn't feel right." Richard's face didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. And why is that? His tone was calm, but there was an edge to it that made Lucy feel uncomfortable. Are you saying you're not curious about what I can offer? Do you really think I'd offer you something without expecting something in return?" Lucy stood firm. "I don't care about money or what you can give me. I don't need anything from you. I helped your son because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted something from you." Her words were simple, but resolute. She wasn't going to let him think that kindness could be bought. Richard's gaze flickered for a moment, as if he wasn't sure whether he should continue this conversation or walk away. He looked at Jake, who was sitting quietly, unaware of the tension that had suddenly filled the room. Richard turned his gaze back to Lucy, his face unreadable. "You're a rare one, Lucy," he said, his voice lower now. "I can see that. Most people would have jumped at the chance to have their life changed. But you—" He trailed off, looking at her as if he was seeing her for the first time. "You don't understand what I'm offering, do you? This isn't just about money, it's about power." Lucy's chest tightened. "I don't care about power," she replied, more forcefully now. "I care about doing what's right. You might have wealth, but I have something money can't buy, my integrity. And I'm not about to sell that for anything, not even for a life-changing offer." Richard's smile faded. "You think you have integrity? You think you can live your whole life without accepting help from people like me? You're wrong." His voice was colder now, sharper. "You'll regret this. People like me get what they want. And right now, I want you to understand just how out of your league you are. You can't turn down what I'm offering and think there won't be consequences." Lucy's heart raced, but she didn't back down. "If you think I'm afraid of your money, you're wrong. You don't scare me. You might have power, but I have my own strength. I've lived without your wealth, and I've survived just fine." Richard leaned back in his chair, studying her, and for the first time Lucy saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a mix of surprise and something she couldn't quite identify. For a brief moment he was speechless, as though he hadn't expected her to stand up to him like this. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly, his voice now softer, almost resigned. "But I'll let you have your moment. Just know that people like me don't forget these things." Lucy didn't say anything else. She simply turned and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't expected it to be so difficult, but she knew she had done the right thing. Richard's money, his power, they didn't matter. What mattered was standing up for what she believed in. She had faced his challenge and refused to let his wealth or influence define her. As she walked back to the counter, she couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over her. No matter what Richard said, she knew that she had kept her dignity intact. But something told her that this was far from over. If Richard wasn't used to being rejected, he was certainly going to find a way to turn the tables. But Lucy wasn't afraid. She had made her choice, and now she had to face whatever came next. After Lucy turned down Richard's offer, she tried to put everything out of her mind. She didn't want to think about him anymore, about the way he had tried to use his wealth to control her. She had made her choice, and it was the right one. But little did she know, Richard wasn't someone who would just walk away easily. His next move would change everything. A few days after the encounter at the cafe, Lucy was working her shift when she noticed something strange. Richard had been coming to the cafe more often, but he wasn't sitting at his usual table. Instead, he was quietly watching her from a distance, almost as if he was waiting for something. Each time he came, she tried to ignore him. She couldn't get distracted. She was focused on her work, on Jake's smile, on the simple joy of helping people. But Richard had a way of making her feel uneasy without saying a word. One afternoon, Richard approached her again. This time, there was no businesslike tone, no cold demeanor. There was only something in his eyes, a look that said he had something important to say. Lucy wasn't sure what to expect, but she didn't want to be caught off guard again. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation," Richard said, his voice softer than usual. "You're a rare person, Lucy. Most people would have jumped at the chance I offered them, but you didn't. And that's what has me intrigued." Lucy didn't respond. She simply nodded, waiting for him to continue. She had already made her choice, and there was nothing he could say that would change that. Richard continued, his eyes intense. "I've spent my life building things, businesses, wealth, influence, but I've never built something like this. I'm offering you something that can change your life. But it's not just about the money. It's about power, the kind of power you can't buy." Lucy's stomach turned. "I don't need power," she said firmly, trying to keep her composure. "I don't need anything from you." Richard paused, as if her words had struck him. His expression faltered, but only for a moment. "You still don't understand, do you? This isn't about money or gifts. It's about the future. My son, Jake. He's not like other kids. He needs someone who truly understands him. He needs someone who can change his world. And I believe that person is you." Lucy was taken aback. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling with confusion. Richard didn't answer right away. Instead, he took out his phone and showed her a picture of Jake. Only this time, it wasn't just a normal picture. It was an official-looking document, something that made Lucy's heart stop. The image was of Jake, but with a note written across the bottom. "Official adoption application, Lucy Montgomery." Lucy's mind spun. Adoption? Was Richard saying that he wanted her to adopt Jake? But why? Was he really serious, or was this just another manipulation? Richard watched her reaction closely. "I'm offering you the chance to be part of something bigger than yourself. A chance to be a part of my son's future, a future where you can truly make a difference. I'm not asking you to do this for the money, Lucy. I'm asking you to do it because I believe you're the one who can give Jake the life he deserves." Lucy felt her knees weaken as the weight of his words hit her. Was this real? Had Richard really been watching her, trying to find someone worthy enough to care for his son? Or was this just another attempt to control her life? I don't know what to say," Lucy stammered. Her heart was racing. This wasn't the conversation she had expected. She had thought Richard was just trying to manipulate her with his wealth. But this was different. This wasn't about a job or money. It was about his son. It was about Jake, and the possibility of changing his life forever. Richard's eyes softened, and for the first time, Lucy saw a glimpse of the man behind the wealth. He wasn't just a billionaire businessman. He was a father who loved his son and wanted to give him a chance at a better life, even if that meant putting his trust in someone like Lucy, someone who had shown real compassion. But Lucy was torn. Could she really take on something as big as this? Was she prepared to become part of Richard's world, knowing that it came with its own set of challenges and consequences? Could she truly accept such a life-changing responsibility? As Richard stood there, watching her, Lucy realized something. This wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't about making the right decision for herself. This was about doing what was best for Jake, and that meant making a decision that would forever change her life. Lucy stood there, frozen, as Richard's words echoed in her mind. She had no idea how to respond to such an offer. A chance to adopt Jake, a child she had only just met, seemed like an impossible decision to make. But deep down, she couldn't ignore the sense of responsibility that weighed on her heart. Richard had laid it all out on the table. His son's future, the chance to give Jake the life he deserved, and her own future intertwined with theirs. The offer was life-changing. It could take her away from her simple life, bring her into a world of luxury, of power, of wealth, things she had never imagined having. She had worked so hard for so long, scrimping to make ends meet, barely able to picture a life where she didn't have to struggle. But now, here was Richard, offering her a way out, a way into a new world. Could she accept that? Could she risk losing who she was to step into a world she didn't truly understand? As she thought about Jake, his bright eyes, the way he had smiled when she helped him eat, Lucy felt her heart pull her toward him. She couldn't deny that helping him had felt like the right thing to do. But adoption? Taking on the responsibility of another life, especially one so complicated, was a huge leap. Could she really do it? Her mind raced as she weighed the possibilities. She had already made it clear to Richard that she didn't need his money, that she wasn't looking for wealth or power. But this offer wasn't about money. It was about Jake's future, and maybe, just maybe, her own. Could she refuse this and continue her life as it was? Or was this her chance to make a real difference in the life of a child who desperately needed it? The more she thought, the more she realized that it wasn't about what she stood to gain. It was about what she could give. Could she be the one to give Jake the love, the support, and the stability he needed? Could she really be the mother figure he deserved? It wasn't a decision she could make lightly, but as the weight of the decision settled on her, she realized one thing. Her heart was already leading her toward Jake. She looked up at Richard, who'd been waiting for her to speak. There was no hint of pressure in his eyes, only patience, and something softer, something that told her he genuinely believed she could help his son. After a long pause, Lucy finally spoke, her voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll adopt Jake. But this isn't just about wealth or status. It's about a real family. If I'm going to do this, I want to make sure Jake's life is full of love, not just luxury." Richard's face softened, and for the first time he seemed genuinely pleased. "I never doubted you," he said quietly. "Jake needs someone like you." That was all she needed to hear. Richard wasn't offering her a life of luxury or power. He was offering her a chance to make a difference, to be a part of something real and meaningful. And in that moment, Lucy knew she had made the right decision. This was no longer about money, no longer about stepping into a new world. It was about giving Jake the life he deserved. As she walked away from Richard and Jake that day, Lucy felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges, things she didn't expect. But the one thing she knew for sure was that she was doing this for the right reasons. She was giving Jake the chance to have a family, a real family. And in return, she would gain something far more precious than anything money could buy: a sense of purpose, a deep connection, and a love that money could never replace. It was a decision that would change everything for Lucy. It was a decision that reminded her of the true value of life: not wealth, not power, but the ability to make a real impact on someone else's life. And as she looked ahead, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with the kind of love that could never be bought. Lucy had made her decision, and she knew that it was just the beginning. What seemed like a simple act of kindness had led her into a new life, a life she had never imagined. But now, as she looked ahead, she realized that her choice wasn't just about helping Jake. It was about making a difference in the world. Her decision had reminded her of something important. Kindness is powerful, and the right choices, no matter how hard, are always worth it. Richard had offered her a life of luxury, power, and wealth, but what she had gained was so much more. She had gained purpose, a chance to change a life, and in the process, change her own. Jake was no longer just a boy she had helped. He was family, and she was ready to take on the responsibility of giving him the life he deserved. Sometimes, the right decision doesn't come with a clear path. It's messy, complicated, and often uncertain. But Lucy's journey proved that even in the face of uncertainty, doing the right thing is always the right choice. So, what do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make a choice that could change everything? How far would you go to do what's right? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear this message. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness lead to the most unexpected, life-changing moments.